Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano sitting in tonight, and I was on noon to 3 on my own show in Philadelphia as the news broke of the shooting. We have many more details tonight, including even on Fox News, a guy, Ted Williams, saying, what the hell is President Trump doing sending in 5 more National Guard to Washington, D.C.? Well, in Dom Giordano's world, he's doing exactly the right thing. Joining us, though, to talk about this, and it is interrelated, at least at some level, is James Fitzpatrick. James wrote a big piece at Town Hall recently. He is a former Army JAG officer, and he wrote a piece at Town Hall talking about political interference in the chain of command that we've seen play out over the last 8 to 10 days is a threat to the Republic. So is what happened in Washington, D.C. today. Let's go to James Fitzpatrick. James, sorrowful night to have you, but I'm very glad to have you, given your background and expertise. Before we get to your column, how do you see what's played out today in Washington?
Well, thanks so much, Dom, for having me. I appreciate it. Like as you said, it is a sorrowful evening as we mourn the loss of these folks. And by the way, I saw conflicting reports. Was it confirmed that the 2 soldiers were killed?
Not
conflicting reports.
Yeah, not to my knowledge, and I never go there until you know what I mean. It's always better to err on that side of it, James. But it is bad enough, and that is certainly, from what we can tell, they're in a very serious place. Yes. Yeah,
and we're still learning more. But I did see that the reports are that there was a potential. The shooter looked like to be an Afghan illegal migrant who came here under a Biden program called Operation Allies Welcome and overstayed his visa. So I think, look, this just really underscores the importance of the president's agenda, both on stopping crime in Washington, D.C. and deporting as many illegal aliens as possible. He needs to follow through on that. I think he's doing a good job of it. Unfortunately, this fell through the cracks, and I think he's going to do everything that he can in his power to ensure that this doesn't happen again. But we just really need to remember the families here, especially around the holidays, and honor our National Guardsmen, all our military, and all our law enforcement during this time.
Absolutely. And James, you're also director of the Center for Advanced Security in America, very important around this. So the Biden administration, again, it's pretty clear, the information that's been verified now. This guy comes here under that program, overstays the visa, and there's no check on him. There's nothing that can be done. And according to reports, he allegedly yelled Allah Akbar as he was engaged in this. He apparently stripped down. He's naked in the one picture I'm looking at. I'm not sure if that's a ritual or not. But I want to go back to the central thing that you wrote and what your group does. Mark Kelly, I had the highest regard for. I still think he's being duped in this video. I think it's Slotkin is the architect. And we know now there was a script. Things were passed around. Senator Gallego talked about that. And we still have not heard any order that is illegal about President Trump. And again, if the FBI does get to speak with him, James, first question I have is why now? What is it? You cannot say this is just an updated, and given your background, I want to get into that, the military and illegal orders, they're not giving any nuance, any information. So if someone came to you, did they come to you when you were an Army JAG officer? I've had on people at very high levels, generals, colonels, Colonel Allen West, a friend. It's very rare that an illegal order would be given or even thought that it's illegal.
That's right, Dom. And let me just take a step back. I mean, this video is beyond outrageous. I mean, these are members of Congress, most of whom served in the military, who are purposefully trying to sow confusion and undermine good order and discipline within the ranks of the military. I mean, and it's really all to just score these cheap political points with their rabid left-wing Trump derangement syndrome base. And I think Kelly in particular, you mentioned, that you maybe have revered him in the past, and that's fair. But I think that's even more the reason why he is even more at fault here, even if he was duped by Slotkin, because he should know better. He's using his rank. He's using his government perch as a U.S. Senator. He's on the Intelligence Committee to spread this video message to as many members as possible. And look, while he's still subject to the UCMJ, I was thrilled to see Secretary Hegseth come out and say that they're investigating this. It needs to be looked at from every angle. We don't know what we don't know here, right? Like we need to see the communication surrounding this. We need to see if there was any donor influence surrounding this. If potentially, hopefully not, but if there was any foreign influence surrounding this. I mean, there are so many unanswered questions here when it was a sweeping call, an insinuation for military members to reject orders from our commander-in-chief. It is absolutely despicable.
Yes, and Houlihan, James, who is in my area, Chrissy Houlihan, the congresswoman, when a question on this did the same about face that we're talking about and just could not give any specific trigger at all. They just refuse, and the media is not pushing them far enough to say, at least on the record, what is it that, I mean, this idea that this is just a PSA at this point. Your experience as a JAG, she actually said, well, even if it's in the time, you're chasing down drug boats, you have to talk to your JAG officer. A guy like you's on a boat as we're chasing the Venezuelan drug gangs, and they'll go all the way up to command. And several people have told me with a lot of these orders, like the Venezuelan order, it already has come down the entire chain of command. And if somebody in that chain of command objects so severely, what they usually do, and one may have, they resign. That's what they do. It is a legal order. If you want to go to this, it'd have to go to the Supreme Court to say it's not a legal order.
That's right, Dom. Yeah, of course, in the history of the military, of course, there's been illegal orders, but they have to go through a process. Once the operation has begun, to let's say in your example, to take out the Venezuelan drug boats, that they already know that it's legal. There are operational JAGs that will travel along with operators for questions here and there, but not as it relates to
that point, James. Ron DeSantis, I think, is one when they did some raids in Iraq, et cetera. And I get that because of the difficulty with the rules of engagement. And there could be things that happen here that are going to be very difficult. That's all good. I mean, you want somebody with military experience there. Did you ever do that? I mean, how often do people come to you?
Sure. Yeah, I spent some time in Kuwait and Jordan, so I was never in sort of a combat operational situation. But I, my job was I actually was in charge of administrative investigations when our mission with the Pennsylvania Army National Guard when we were deployed back in 2018. So I was a little less on the operational side like that, but was, we had plenty of investigations that started during operations where we may have, judged whether or not people may have or may have not followed the fullest extent of the law. But I think in this situation, this is not what these folks are talking about. They're talking about a sweeping rejection of orders. Right? Yes. They're not talking about, maybe you shouldn't have treated the prisoner in that way, or can you do this or that? No, they're not talking about that at all. They're talking about, and there's websites even being put out by left-wing groups right now for people to sign up, and they tell you to contact them through private Proton email and Signal chat and things like that. They are trying to undermine the authority of the Commander-in-Chief and the Secretary of War, plain and simple, and it's disgraceful. And I think, Dom, one thing that's being overlooked here, too, in this video is a disturbing sentence, because they'll say, well, look, we just are restating the law, right, which we all know is nonsense. But in the beginning of the video, they actually, and I wrote it down because I found it so disturbing, they create a lie. They say, this administration is pitting our uniformed military and intelligence community professionals against American citizens.
That's right.
And I have not heard any example of that whatsoever.
Exactly.
And they use that almost as the predicate for the whole video, and it's just false.
Yes, and it's part of this thing that results. Look, when you have a maniac like this here illegally in the country, I'm not going to be one to say any this, that, and the other drove him. But they are creating an atmosphere where we have now two severely wounded under attack. They're helping to trigger this. And to your point, billboards are up now leading into Fort Bragg, and there are billboards going to be put up in Memphis, Chicago, and places like that about the National Guard. And James, they actually try to play on the pride of the military, are saying, one of them says, did you sign up for airborne just to be a backup to ICE? This is as low as it gets.
It really is. And I'm glad you that's kind of a good segue, because I did want to connect the fact that this video and I think that, this crime that occurred, this horrible shooting that occurred, I think are connected somewhat. You had Alyssa Slotkin went on the Sunday shows, I believe it was ABC, and she actually said that she believed the military was going to start shooting civilians.
Right.
So, and I couldn't believe it, right? So she has a video saying, remember, you can ignore legal orders, as she says, which we all know is an insinuation to ignore President Trump, and then followed up by again, no evidence that she believes the military is going to start shooting civilians, and then this happens. It is really concerning the way that they are using their government microphone to incite this sort of stuff, and we saw what happened. It's really scary. It's really irresponsible.
Stands by. We'll talk about what's the solution here. In the case of Mark Kelly, he could lose rank, commission, pension. That's where I think it should go. With the others, might be a little bit trickier. Dom Giordano in on a big night with you. We're talking with James Fitzpatrick, director of the Center for Advanced Security in America, a JAG officer who served, you heard the arena and the areas that he served, about this and about the backstory of the seditious six. We'll get to all that next here on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night on a sad and busy news night, particularly around Thanksgiving. But we're talking with someone with real-life experience around some of the stuff that's interrelated, coming together here with this shooting. James Fitzpatrick, director of the Center to Advance Security in America and former JAG officer. James, with Kelly, I get it. The president got wound up. Sedition is possibly capital punishment. But more likely, what I'd like to see, various people in that roles like you've had, is that this guy clearly, to me, should get a full trial. Talk about if he does. Is it like in A Few Good Men? How would a court-martial trial, military trial, be different? Does the defendant have less ability to defend? Is it the same? How would that work?
That's a great question. So it is very similar. A court-martial, the rules of evidence are very similar to the federal rules of civil procedure. So he would have, if he were to be put on criminal trial through, a criminal a court-martial, excuse me, he would have full, due process and ability to put on his defense. He would be provided with government counsel. If obviously he could afford his own counsel, but he would get the whole range that any other defendant at the federal level would receive. But in terms of penalties, I think look, the facts would lead, but it would be a variety of potential penalties. Look, he is a retired Navy captain who's a United States senator who sits on the Intelligence Committee. I don't know exactly what his clearance is, but I'm sure he holds a very high clearance. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a top secret clearance. That could be a penalty of losing his clearance or being docked somewhat in his clearance. He could be docked in his rank. Which would affect his pension payout. But then again, depending on the facts, he could face imprisonment if it came out that some of the facts that we discussed, like if there was undue donor influence or foreign influence in this video creation. So I think he's got a real problem on his hands, and I think it's totally valid to pursue both the military and civilian investigatory sides as they are, specifically for him, and then for the others, obviously just the civilian side's available.
Yeah, I don't know if you share it to ask you to step out of the JAG type of thing, but my gut doing talk radio all these years and seeing her, I don't see Kelly being the architect of this. He doesn't strike me as the guy, but that doesn't matter. You made a great point. He, out of all of them in here, has a much higher station, astronaut, hero, much bigger connection. He, out of all of them, should not be duped into this if he was, with Slotkin, etc. He ought to be the one that said, look, I don't like Trump either, but I'm putting the brakes on this. This is going to disrupt the chain of command.
That's exactly right. Any mature military officer, former military officer would have had that exact same reaction. You can have whatever political beliefs that you want,
right,
and you can express them in any way that you want. But this is not an expression of political beliefs. Everyone's saying, the left starts saying, oh, this is a attack on the First Amendment. Not at all. If he got up there and said, look, members of the military, I disagree with everything President Trump stands for. Okay, no problem. But you can't then insert yourself into the chain of command. That's
exactly
plain and simple.
Exactly. James,
go
ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go
I
ahead.
just want to put a finer point on potentially some of the ramifications for
right,
others that are involved. Look, I think what could happen here, and hopefully it does happen, is I think you have some friendly attorneys general, specifically in Pennsylvania and New Hampshire, where, that are law and order attorneys general that could potentially open state level investigations. And I know there's organizations out there that are potentially advocating for that. Look, it's a crime in both of those states to obstruct any sort of government function or solicit another to commit a crime. And that's potentially what DeLuzio, Houlihan, and Goodlander, for the folks from those states were doing. So that is another potential option here.
Well, I'd like to see that. Dave Sunday, our Attorney General in Pennsylvania, is a great guy. Where do we find you at the Center for Advanced Security in America?
We are at advancing-america.org, and then the best place to find us is on X, and we're at Secure USA.
Thank you very much, James. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Dom. You as well.
All right, coming up, breaking news. President Trump has given a video address on the shooting. We'll play that, I believe, in its entirety. Not sure how long that is. Coming up here on a busy news day around this as we pray and monitor for the National Guard that were shot. I wrote down 22 points already. That's how enraged I was as this was breaking at the end of my show in Philadelphia today and continuing as we speak. Even a guy on Fox News, Ted Williams, on Fox News, saying, why in the world is President Trump sending in 500 more National Guard? Why do you think he's sending in 500 more National Guard? He's sending a clear message about this. Washington is safer, and they're not going to take that away. They're not going to run because of this incident. That's the message that's being sent. We'll play the president's video message on the shooting. Take your calls at 833-482-5337. So jump on board. Let us know what you're thinking as this develops. Dom Giordano sitting in tonight on America at Night on Westwood One.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
My great fellow Americans, earlier today on the eve of the Thanksgiving holiday, 2 members of the National Guard serving in Washington, D.C. were shot at point-blank range in a monstrous ambush-style attack just steps away from the White House. They'd been deputized as part of the most successful public safety and national security mission in the history of our nation's capital, the D.C. Safe and Beautiful Task Force, which has achieved an unprecedented reduction in violent crime and crimes of all type. This heinous assault was an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. It was a crime against our entire nation. It was a crime against humanity. The hearts of all Americans tonight are with those two members of the West Virginia National Guard and their families. The love of our entire country is pouring out for them, and we are lifting them up in our prayers. As we are filled with anguish and grief for those who were shot, we're also filled with righteous anger and ferocious resolve. As President of the United States, I am determined to ensure that the animal who perpetrated this atrocity pays the steepest possible price. I can report tonight that based on the best available information, the Department of Homeland Security is confident that the suspect in custody is a foreigner who entered our country from Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth. He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021 on those infamous flights that everybody was talking about. Nobody knew who was coming in. Nobody knew anything about it. His status was extended under legislation signed by President Biden, a disastrous president, the worst in the history of our country.
All right, that's President Trump, and yeah, I second that on President Biden. The baggage of Biden, be it inflation or stuff like this, continues. No monitoring system set up. This guy could walk around until he attempted to murder people in uniform tonight. So the president has ordered 500 more National Guard into D.C., where they have been doing great work, lowering crime. This idea they're picking up trash. Well, if they're there monitoring whatever and they see some trash, they're going to pick it up. What is it with the left and trash? You ever see these events with the trash that's left behind? Ridiculous. All right, here's how you get on board. 833-482-5337 gets you to me. 833-482-5337. Ted Williams, who is an alleged national security expert on Fox tonight, started to challenge the host. Why in the world would the president be sending in 500 more National Guard? Hey, Ted, why do you think he's sending them in? This is about standing against all this stuff that's going on over the last 2 weeks. That's what it's about. Now, here is the viral moment. Remember when Charlie Kirk was shot? People on MSNBC, some of them got fired because of the stuff that came bubbling out of them. This guy, Ken Dillian, is an alleged security guy, probably the main one that MSNBC goes to. Listen to what he said about today's shooting that is not going over well with Americans. And I'm hoping that there is even more pushback. This guy's been a serial abuser. Cut two.
You know, there's so much controversy happening in the United States right now with ICE, who are also wearing uniforms and wearing masks. And so there's, you don't know, people walking around with uniforms in an American city. There are some Americans that might object to that. And so apparently this shooting has happened.
Yeah, some Americans might object to that. Or could it be this guy is a perfect example of what's wrong and what has been wrong? A guy that thinks he can walk around and go nuts because he came here from Afghanistan, not vetted, and then after his time is overstayed more than once, there is no procedure to vet him. He can walk around, get a weapon, and try to kill Americans, allegedly while yelling Allah Akbar. So watch for this with Dillian. These people reveal themselves just like the Kirk shooting in moments like this. They can't help themselves. So let's review a little bit. We don't know any more on the status of the two National Guard. As I mentioned, this is just blocks away from the White House. These guys have been compared to Nazis, ICE compared to Nazis, constantly Nazi, Nazi, Nazi. There's an anti-fascist group, allegedly of military veterans, who blame Trump. And they say Trump provoked this, not the Biden policies, not is this a terrorist attack, is it based upon religion in some way, shape, or form with this guy, not the seditious six. They're celebrating on Blue Sky, the alternate to Twitter, what happened here, and finally saying maybe this will put the fear of God in the National Guard and others. Maybe one of these governors will rescind and pull them out. That's what they're trying to do. No word about is D.C. safer, is Memphis safer. As I said, we have billboards that are up on the way to Fort Bragg. They're putting them up now, these various groups. Who's funding this? Near Memphis, Chicago, places like that, in order to try to provoke the National Guard, ICE, God knows who else, the military, to say illegal orders, I'm not doing this anymore. Look at this. That's why the president is all over this. Pete Hegseth is all over it. And that's why this should intensify a look. You heard James Fitzpatrick, at these 6 people who engaged in what is a clear attempt to disrupt the chain of command and attack Trump. It's nothing else. It's not a refresher course. The military already know about illegal orders. They can't cite an illegal order that has been committed. So then why try to be disruptive? Because it's political. And I do hope that people like Mark Kelly get some accountability. We went through some of the things that could happen to him, and particularly Slotkin, the senator from Michigan and former CIA. All righty, 833-482-5337. You can get on board. I thought when this first happened that maybe this was street crime because there was a report that other people may have been shot also. But apparently it is not. It seems like this guy was armed, came around the corner. He was looking to get at National Guard or people in uniform and open fire in an ambush right on top of them. Fortunately, we have him. As I understand it, if he's tried in a federal court, which I think he will be, he can get the death penalty. So let's move on this. Let's get an early trial date, and let's do something about stuff like this in the near future. Now, that would be dependent upon the status of the National Guard, but he certainly could get life for this attack. All right, let's start off here on America at Night. Larry in Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Larry, go right ahead.
Yes, sir. I want to talk about the importance of America and President Trump to show strength in this situation in the Ukraine. The Chinese are watching to see how strong we were to support them. Taiwan is right there. And Japan has recently risen to the level of the number 4 military power in the world.
Right.
And they are watching. They've made some comments that they were favorable to trying to defend.
Okay, we got it.
Taiwan.
Everybody's watching. Well, how do you think Trump is doing so far?
I think he's failing. I think he's failing our country. He is too appeasing. He is willing to cut deals, give the Russians territory that they have invaded against. So here's what I think. I say, not only do you get out of every area in Ukraine, you get out of Crimea as well.
All right, well, Larry, thank you for that. Thank you for that geopolitical tonight. We're not really talking on it fully, but that's okay. And I would say, yes, they're not going to do that. They have the upper hand. We have to deal with reality. We have to somehow or another craft something that the Ukrainians can save what's possible here. That's the reality of where we are. All right, but where we are in Charleston or Washington, D.C. is an issue. You heard the president on that video address. This is a remnant of failed Biden policies and what we've seen play out this week with those on the left. This guy should have been checked on. He had no business still being in the country. He's here illegally at this point. What would motivate him? I give you one motivation. Is it religious? Allah Akbar? Is he fueled by what? Just hatred of Trump? I mean, he's staying in the United States. He's here illegally. Trump did not fail him in Afghanistan. It was the policy of Joe Biden. So why engage in this now? Getting in the mind of a maniac is kind of foolish. But I believe that he is going to be charged federally, and that is a good thing. You can imagine what they do in Washington, D.C. All right, 833-482-5337. Jump on board. Dom sitting in on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano on a very difficult night, sitting in on America at Night. So I referenced this guy, Ted Williams. I'm sure you've seen him on Fox, one of their security experts. So Mr. Williams tonight on Fox, of all places, says, one of my deepest concerns right now is that the president has decided to send 500 additional National Guard members to the District of Columbia. I'm asking, why in the hell are you doing that, President? I'm asking because the sad part about this is right now that the National Guard are out there on the streets. They're deeply concerned. They know that 2 of their fellow National Guardsmen have been shot. They're going to be on a high state of alert. And the last thing we need in the District of Columbia or anywhere else is another Kent State. This guy on Fox, really? Really, that's what the National Guard are going to do in this situation? No, he's sending them in to send a message politically to the world, to these Democrats. No, we're not going to buckle on this. We are going to double down as far as protecting Washington. We're not backing away no matter what we're hearing from MSNBC and CNN. Let's go to Eduardo. Tampa, Florida, streaming on WLS. Eduardo, welcome.
Yeah, I talked to you on Monday. This is very unfortunate. I think what we need to do is we need to racial profile here. In Chicago, there were 3 Venezuelan teenagers that stabbed and robbed a homeless man. In a suburb of Rome, North Africans raped a 19-year-old. These are all illegals in these 2 cities. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. You don't have immigration control. This is what happens. And I am glad to hear that Pete has the Dominican Republic on board for the fight against drugs. He's adding more cities over there in Latin America. So all of this is an international thing. This is not just in the U.S. This whole thing, this is what Democratic Congress does not understand. This is a worldwide operation, and they don't understand that.
Yeah, Eduardo, thank you. Thanks very much. Right, you bring a guy in on this program, the Afghan program, okay, and then he overstays what was allowed, and then there's no vetting. He gets in his head, he'll do whatever he wants. He's wandering around Washington. Is this religiously based? Just ambushes them, springs on them, and starts opening fire. But this Dillian guy at MSNBC, saying that the American people don't want uniformed in the cities. Is that what it's about? That's what he's saying. Ted Williams, well, don't bring in those National Guard. They're going to be trigger happy. They're going to be firing away. Where's the evidence of any of this stuff, right? We don't want another Kent State. So I guess, really, Ted Williams on Fox would say maybe we should withdraw the National Guard then, because we don't want anybody to be trigger happy. That way, let's go back to letting people in Washington, D.C. kill themselves. You got to remember, this is within 2 blocks. It's a national mall area. It's within 2 blocks of the White House that this happened. So it's not out in the boondocks. This guy boldly walking the streets of Washington, yelling Allah Akbar, carrying a weapon and shooting two guys. Where did he get that from? He got it from because he's been here forever. You think he'd be hiding or something since he's here illegally now at this point. Oh, no, he's not doing that. Why do that? He's been emboldened to believe that he can just do what he wants in the United States. To Eduardo's point, it's part of this pattern of wildness and recklessness and no law that's operational there. So should we withdraw the National Guard tonight? That's what Ted Williams seems to be saying. Or should we do what President Trump said? No, I'm sending them in to send this message, and in other places, we're not going away. You're not going to intimidate us. You're not going to push back on this. I think the president really ought to go to Washington on Thanksgiving, make a trip. It's a war zone, seeing this play out tonight, and make a statement there, and maybe serve some turkey to the National Guard. All right, 833-482-5337. That will get you on board. So what is the next move in this? Well, already on the left, just like the Kirk shooting, they're not waiting. The next move on them is to blame Trump on this, and even on Fox to say, oh, my God, Trump is going to get us another Kent State by sending in the National Guard. 833-482. Your call next, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, Dom Giordano on America at Night. During that break, someone just posted on Twitter, Mr. Mayorkas. Remember this guy heading up Homeland Security? And there was testimony in 2021 about the people coming from Afghanistan being fully vetted. About 2 minutes and 45 seconds in, they had to remind him that he was under oath when he insisted about all these vettings. All right? Let's go to John in Lanham, Maryland on WMAL. Hey, John, good evening. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say Trump is right. He's got to double down on bringing the troops in. If he brings in 500 or 1,000 or even more. But because the thing is, and the thing with the Muslim population is, like in Dearborn, people are worried about offending them by saying different things. But they're already offended by us, by being Christian, just by being a Christian nation. They're offended by that, by being the infidels, as they like to call us. How can you offend somebody who's already offended by you?
Well, the Dearborn thing is very apropos. It is out of control. It has been for some time. You're exactly right. It almost isn't part of America at this point. And several witnesses say this guy yelled Allah Akbar as he was doing this.
Oh, I'm sure. Because that's, I mean, and I think a thing that kind of lit the flame was when this guy threw the sandwich at the federal officer.
Yeah, and got away with it.
Happened to him.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's only a sandwich. Imagine
Yeah.
being out there patrolling these streets, picking up trash. Some yo-yo throws a sandwich at you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And this guy gets to be a hero on the left. You're exactly right.
It's sad. It's a sad state of affairs. That's why I got out of the Democratic Party. I don't even call it. It's the demonic party now. It's far from being democratic.
Well, John, have a great Thanksgiving. The president's right to send in those 500 troops. And the sandwich guy. Yeah, can you imagine throwing a big Subway sandwich at a National Guard guy, just doing his job, trying to protect, trying to make it safer, which it is, by all accounts that I can find. Is it completely murder-free and all that? No, probably not. But it is a lot safer. That's exactly what's going on. I'm amazed, though. This Ted Williams guy on Fox, Kent State, talking about that. Just ridiculous stuff. Hey, follow me on Twitter, Dom Giordano, at DomShow1210. Dom sitting in on America at Night on Westwood One.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
All right, it's Dom Giordano rounding out my time sitting in with you here on America at Night. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210. I'm from Philadelphia, so is our next guest, the ultimate swing state, Pennsylvania. And one of the people that on my show, noon until 3 in Philadelphia, Talk Radio 1210, I honored post the 2024 election, Linda Kerns, Attorney Kerns, along with Scott Presler, a name you may have heard, that turned the tide in the ultimate swing state. Linda did it by being so vigilant that she was at her desk on Labor Day in 2024 when an incident happened in Philadelphia of a guy on public spaces putting up like what looked like an endorsement by the Philadelphia Eagles of Kamala Harris. She's now with us tonight because the other side is at it again. It's not enough you can vote by mail, early voting, all those things, and I encourage people to vote by mail. Otherwise, you're going to lose. Linda Kerns is with us because now we have Eric Swalwell wanting to vote by phone and Alaska jumping in. Linda, welcome to America at Night. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Dom, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Will you be, people should know, particularly our Memphis listeners, will you be drinking Elvis wine tomorrow? You give out bottles of Elvis wine occasionally.
Hey, that's a pretty good idea. Yeah. So are you going to introduce me as an election law attorney, but also a lover of Elvis? Is that how we should?
Yes,
let the listeners know who I am?
That's the dual headline. That fleshes it out very well. So, Linda, to that point, though, before we get to that, tonight, the nation looking at this right on the cusp of Thanksgiving, this shooting in Washington. You talked to John Yoo, who I often have on. He goes way back to the Bush administration, excellent on all these issues involving interrogation, involving the military. Your thoughts when you talk with him sitting in on Talk Radio 1210 about what we've seen play out with 6 Democrats who were in the military?
So what I talked to John about was the Trump administration's use of the military to fight crime. So we were addressing the issue of the drug the drug votes and whether or not the administration can or should use the military to fight crime rather than to actually fight wars. So he really dissected it for us and talked about how the drug cartels are basically for-profit entities that are basically trying to make money through their crime, and that might not be a proper use of the military.
What did you think?
I agreed with John, and that's why I had him on the show. I think that what makes America the best country in the world is our separation of powers. That we have three distinct sections of government, and Congress declares war, decides if we, can do that. The president shouldn't necessarily do that unilaterally, and I think that there are a lot of downstream consequences when you run afoul of those rules.
Now, Linda, too, you also talked about Swalwell. Let's start with Swalwell because listeners should know you are one of the ultimate people for our listeners. I don't know that there are Linda Kerns across the nation. If there are, elections are going to be a lot better and more transparent. We're very concerned, both sides not accepting elections again and again. So Swalwell, running for governor in California, his bit is, as I understand it, somehow or another we vote by phone, as if it's not easy enough already.
Right. So in 2024, I represented the Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee in Pennsylvania, that swing state of Pennsylvania. And what we did, our goal during that election year was not only just get out the vote, but also convince voters that your vote is safe. make sure that they knew that we had a really comprehensive election integrity program, and the RNC did that all over the country. But we really, really concentrated on it in Pennsylvania because we knew how important the Commonwealth was. So we really got the word out. We recruited poll watchers. We recruited observers. We really tried to make sure that every voter not only knew how important it was to vote, but if you did vote, your vote would be safe. So now we have Swalwell saying that, hey, let's just vote by phone. Let's just pick up your smartphone and vote by phone. Well, first of all, his resume is a little thin to be in Congress. He doesn't really have a lot of real world experience, and that's probably why he can come up with these ridiculous ideas. Now, this vote by phone stuff, it is being used in certain places in America. Alaska has tried it, and the New York Times had a big article on it, as if Alaska was kind of turning itself over to vote by phone. But if you read the local Alaska newspapers, what they said was this past April, of the 60,000 ballots that were cast in this one jurisdiction, only 136 voters actually used the vote by phone method. So it's not like it's something that is really well tested. But the problem I see is, first of all, why do we need this? People like Swalwell talk about turnout, and Democrats talk about turnout. How can we boost turnout? How can we boost turnout? As if the government needs to play a really active role in boosting turnout. Now, I believe that the government should make voting available. I think that they should remove any and all barriers to voting. But to actively try to boost turnout, I think that's a step too far. Because the problem is, if you're boosting turnout, are you boosting turnout for across like all, basically diversity? Are you asking all voters, or are you just concentrating on certain voters, which could affect the election?
Exactly. I've never been, Linda, in it. I don't care. Get out there and vote, or otherwise the country ends. I'm more of the camp that I don't want people voting that we have to beg to vote. Don't think that's a good idea. Waters down the vote, and I don't trust their basic knowledge on this. To your point, remove the impediments. I'm okay even with early voting now at this point. Are you okay with early voting?
Well, the problem that I have with not voting on Election Day is I think that we as voters and campaigns and political parties, we have the right to poll watch and observe. And the more that you spread this out, early voting, mail voting, the harder it is to really make sure that you're watching that entire process. With early voting, it is a little bit easier because if there are specific days and there's a limited number of places where you can early vote, then it is realistic possibly for a campaign to get poll watchers out there and people to observe. But once you have it so widespread, it's very difficult for a campaign or a party to get enough poll watchers to watch that, because it's hard enough to get poll watchers just for that one election day, let alone 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks ahead of time. And that's one of the problems with mail voting. I can't sit at your kitchen table and watch you fill that out. I can't make sure that it's actually you who filled that out, that no one else took your vote. And there's a similar problem with vote by phone. Not only can I not watch you do it, like that problem with mail balloting, but at least with mail balloting, I can be there at the Board of Elections or whatever you call it in your jurisdiction, wherever they count the votes. I can be there and watch you count. And we did that. The Republican National Committee did that all over the United States during 2024. We recruited observers following the local laws in every jurisdiction, but we made sure we were there to watch them open the ballots, make sure that, after the envelope, the name matched the voter, make sure that they were being counted correctly. And we certainly did that in Pennsylvania. How do you watch them open votes that came out over a phone? You don't.
No, you can't. No. This just gives it away. You and I are trying to reach them halfway. And also, it's strategic. You want to win. We have to have mail-in balloting until we get rid of that and vote on Election Day. But by phone is just incredible. I mean, why did Alaska say they tried this? Did they give the argument it's so spread out that you need to do that? What was the argument?
Alaska talks about the fact that they have bad weather, and that's certainly true. It's cold, and it can be difficult to travel if there's a really bad storm. It's very, very spread out. In a place like Philadelphia or like a suburb, usually it doesn't take that long to get you to a polling place. Even in the more rural areas in the country, you can usually just get in your car and drive. Alaska has some impediments that way, but people still managed to get out to vote during the presidential election. And in last year's presidential election, their percentage of the voting age population, of voting eligible population that went out and voted was pretty comparable with the rest of the country. So the voters can do it if they want to. Just because the participation drops off in the off-year elections doesn't mean it would increase again if you made it this easy that you could vote by phone.
Right.
So I don't think there are really, really good arguments for this. Additionally, what makes our system great is also one of the things that is so frustrating about it, and that is the decentralization. If someone was going to try to hack our vote, for example, I'll just use Pennsylvania because that's where you and I are from, and I'm assuming everyone listening all over the country is a Philadelphia Eagles fan just like us, and is going to watch the game on Friday. But I don't want to digress.
You know, I have to say this: I don't seem to see Eagles hatred across the country like Cowboys hatred. If they're if they're there another 5 years being this dominant, maybe that will happen. But they basically have people that don't care or love them across the country. There's little hate, not much hatred. Yeah.
Good. I don't want people to turn off their radios while I'm talking election just because I mentioned the Eagles. So people have to know that when you're from Philadelphia, you bleed green. But with this internet voting or vote by phone, it's by its nature, it's going to have to be a little more centralized. Like, for example, in Pennsylvania, none of our machines that are at each polling place, and thousands upon thousands upon thousands of polling places all across the Commonwealth, none of them are connected to the internet. So if someone wanted to actually, like, say, hack, you'd have to hack thousands upon thousands of machines.
Exactly.
It essentially makes these elections unhackable. When you centralize it, like on some type of a software, like that you use on a phone, it makes it a little bit easier because it's all centralized. And as frustrating as it is to have it decentralized and have all these other, so many people in it and so many different towns with their own rules, that is the genius of the system. And this vote by phone takes that away and makes it centralized, and that could make it, open to hackers. And then, of course, I think Swallow said something like, well, I can do my banking on the phone, or I can pay my credit card bill on the phone. But the thing is, if I pay my credit card bill on the phone and there's a mistake, there's a record and I can change that. I can get that back. You can call the credit card company and say, hey, this was a mistake. You can call the bank and say, hey, somebody took money out of my account and I didn't do it. And, I think that's probably happened to a lot of us. Well, you can't do that with a vote, because once a vote is in there, they have to scramble it to keep it secret. So you can never, ever get that vote back.
Exactly. Linda, thank you for coming on tonight. Just flat out of time here. Happy Thanksgiving. Want people to follow you, though. Where do we go to follow all things Linda Kerns?
Oh, sure. You can go to Linda Kerns Law on X, LindaKerns LAW. And Dom, me, I could talk voting for hours and hours and hours. So I'm glad you gave me a time limit.
Oh, I'm so glad you came on tonight. To be continued next time I'm on. Thank you, Linda, very much.
All right. Have a great evening.
All right. There's Linda Kerns. And again, we want to restore faith and transparency in elections. She did that. We don't need more ideas of voting by phone, etc. It's already easy enough to do it. I'm coming to your calls next, though, at 833-482-5337. We have a situation now where people are saying one way or the other, I want President Trump. I commend him bringing in 500 more. I guess tomorrow they'll be on scene. National Guard, other than Thanksgiving for them. That's a little difficult. And we're seeing this play out with the backdrop of just sheer terror here, of just attempting to assassinate 2 National Guardsmen in Washington. Jump on board Dom Giordano on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano, pinch hitting, would love to speak with you. Jump on board. What a news day. What a night. And just all the baggage of everything that we talk about that's been brewing here is playing out in Washington. Let's go to Pat in Sedona, Arizona, streaming. Hey, Pat, welcome to America at Night.
Hey, hello, sir. Vince, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, Pat. Go right ahead. Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of things coming in. It's going crazy. We got the retrograde going on in our area. I just, your gentleman who answers your phones just told me they're in critical condition because it's crazy. I've heard that the National Guardsman had died, and that really hit home with me, and I can't imagine the families on Thanksgiving knowing
it's outrageous.
Son.
No, as far as we know, critical condition. So, that's going to be our stance. That's what we're looking for, and that's where we're going with it. Pat, thank you very much. And look, it was regrettable. Let me say this, that the West Virginia governor got wound up today and put that out on social media. Not a good look. Don't do that. It's an ironclad rule. I would not announce anything like that. I don't know what he was thinking, what his people were telling him. Don't get ahead of the story, particularly on something like that. But Pat's right. Thanksgiving around the corner, how difficult this is. Of course, the other side is saying, well, look at what Trump's doing, even bringing in 500 National Guard tomorrow. I hope there are people in Washington. I think the Trump administration ought to do it. Be there and serve them a fancy Thanksgiving dinner. If they are coming in tomorrow, I know he's called up 500 more. Let's hope they have some kind of Thanksgiving, but need it to send a message. No, we're not going to run from this. This is another example of people roaming blue cities that have no business being here. He's here illegally. He's overstayed. And there is a religious element with the Allah Akbar with this that has to be looked at. That's where we are with this. And it's outrageous to say, well, we can't trust the National Guard. Ted Williams on Fox News. We don't want another Kent State. No, they have acted perfectly in this. We had a caller that mentioned, too, what about the fact one of them was hit with a sandwich and the courts still did nothing about it? It's not just that the sandwich is not a deadly weapon. It's the sheer disrespect, the outright hatred to people that are doing nothing but protecting people. Crime is lowered. Quality of life is better, particularly in the tourist areas and down. This is only 2 blocks away from the White House. Why in the world would we go after the National Guard? Because they can't get at Trump, so they want to go after the National Guard or ICE or even the military. Got a lot more to say on that. The president spoke tonight and told us why he's sending in 500 more to Washington, D.C. All right, you can hit me on Twitter at any time at DomShow1210. But do jump in at 833-482-5337. Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night on Westwood One.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
It's Dom Giordano in America at Night. Byron Donalds was on a show immediately after the shooting today, and I think the congressman and hopefully the next governor of Florida broke it down beautifully. two things related to the shooting in Washington. The congressman said, I'm thinking a couple things. First, these members of Congress with their stupid video, they're putting our military men and women in harm's way. That's number one. Number two, now we're finding out the shooter is an Afghani national that came in during the year 2021. Well, gee, what happened in 2021? Oh, yes, it was the botched withdrawal of Afghanistan from Joe Biden, one of the very worst geopolitical withdrawals and military decisions by the former president of the United States. We knew at the time there were Afghan nationals who were coming into the United States that were not being properly vetted. We were being told, just get people in the United States as quickly as possible. The Biden team would then do the necessary work of vetting everybody. And even at the time, none of us believed that on Capitol Hill. So now, a few years later, we have an Afghan national in the streets of Washington decided to shoot to kill. Let me be clear, to shoot to kill two of our National Guardsmen from the state of West Virginia. And Democrat fingerprints are all over it. Exactly. The baggage, the policies now of the seditious six and of Joe Biden, big time, are all over this. And the illegal aspect, he's overstated. He's not vetted. He's wandering around here figuring he'll do whatever the hell he wants. All right, one other quick thing I wanted to get to tonight. I was prepared to talk about this quite a bit, but the shooting, of course. Pete Hegseth is also involved in something else. Hegseth today saying that the Boy Scouts, all right, no longer the Boy Scouts, you know how they've devolved, will no longer be supported by the U.S. military. We supported, among other things, their jamboree, logistical support, supply, resources, all of that. Heck, they're the Boy Scouts. I talked about it on my show in Philadelphia today, and people were talking about the alternatives to the Boy Scouts and how they support Hegseth in this. His point is, why should we be clearing the U.S. military of the debris of DEI and related things, and yet propping up the Boy Scouts, who are the architect in continuing this policy? In other words, I charge that the Boy Scouts couldn't accept not having as big of a national footprint, so they capitulated to the left. We've known that for a while, and there are groups that have the same values of the old Boy Scouts. So Hegseth is saying, no, if we're against all this stuff, I'm not going to use the military, the U.S. military, to back up a group like this. They're out of bounds, the U.S. Boy Scouts. I had people telling me the numbers of people that now get the Eagle Scout designation are way up because they watered it down. And you know about girls in the Boy Scouts and everything else. They're not the Boy Scouts of old. The people defended to the death when under attack. The left has won, and now they're a citadel of keeping that name. I don't even think they call themselves the Boy Scouts anymore. And Hegseth today announcing that, or it was late yesterday, before all this shooting, that he's involved, and he's a principal player now in trying to coordinate. This is a good move. I'm exactly on board with it. U.S. military, Department of War, they are not going to be supporters in any way, shape, or form that I can tell of propping up the current Boy Scouts. So if you're a former Boy Scout or leader or Eagle Scout, we'd love to hear from you. 833-482-5337. I've interviewed Eagle Scouts over the years. I know it's very demanding, and it's supposed to be. And we know the number of people that have been in the military, have been in Congress and the like, that were Eagle Scouts, or at least Boy Scouts. It used to be tremendous training, but it's kind of almost fraudulent that they're maintaining that when they're not doing that. And Hegseth is breaking through that, and I think he's exactly right. All right, let me go to Clifford, Walden, Oregon, KUGN. Hey, Cliff, welcome to the show.
Hey, yeah, it sounds like the whatever Scouts now, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to go back to the sandwich a little bit, where the guy threw the sandwich at.
Right.
It sounds more like it's not really about the sandwich and the guy throwing the sandwich. It sounds like it's more like like impeding what they're trying to do. I think that's pretty serious, and that's the way it should be looked at.
Well, it's an assault. It's an assault on the law enforcement officer. You know, whether you punch him or throw a sandwich at him. And it was wrapped up. It was a Subway. You know, it wasn't just a piece of bacon, lettuce, and tomato. Yeah, that's exactly what he was trying to do. And I think he's in the U.S. government, some federal thing or whatever, Alex. And in D.C., they said, get out of here. The guy just threw a sandwich. Big deal. You be out there 8 hours a day risking your life, and some idiot hits you with a sandwich. He's lucky he didn't get a lot worse punishment.
Well, and be a bit bystander while the guy's distracted with a sandwich in his face. You know, a bystander that's getting attacked or something, and getting killed or mauled or whatever.
Yeah, they had to chase him down for blocks. That's exactly right. Clifford, have a nice Thanksgiving. Thank you. So, yeah, it's not a small matter. No, it's not the end of the world. He gets hit with a sandwich. But there's got to be a penalty for things like this. Why pick on the National Guard? Why bother the National Guard? They're there just providing a presence. That helps deter crime. They're picking up, they're beautifying, they're doing things like that. What is the big deal here? The big deal is these blue cities, although Washington, the mayor has been on board with this, these blue cities want to continue to suck up tax dollars while not provide security. They're sanctuary cities, they're all kinds of things, as is Washington. So this guy is emboldened. Is it by religion, yelling Allah Akbar as he shoots two National Guards who have bulletproof vests on and all? Or is it just he's emboldened, he's been here forever, and he's gotten away with it? Comes from Afghanistan, not vetted. We don't know what his animus is. Yeah, go to the United States. They'll let you do whatever you want. All right, we have one other person out there tonight. Her name is Jane Mayer, kind of a notorious figure for the New Yorker, being called a sick, disgusting ghoul after she said the National Guard should never have been deployed in Washington. That's what this is about. Her column on X was made about an hour after the two were shot. This is so tragic, so unnecessary. These poor guardsmen should have never been deployed. I live in D.C. and watched as they have virtually nothing to do but pick up trash. It was a political show, and at what cost? And then went on to talk about, of course, the person responsible is President Trump. Let me go to Larry in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. WRNN. Larry, hi.
Hi. Yeah, these are the things that we allow, these National Guardsmen being shot. You know, we elected these officials. They set the policies. They basically allowed it. We got a constitutional republic. We got to protect this country, and people elect these officials. They voted for them.
Yeah, and what it tells us, Larry, thank God, you know, even with whatever flaws for President Trump, this is the baggage of Joe Biden. He eroded the American standard of living, the inflation, the wild spending, and this is his policy: disastrous withdrawal, no vetting, and then when a guy overstays, nobody tries to keep track of these guys. They don't care that they're here until he ends up randomly shooting two of our National Guard.
We allow it.
Thank you. Thanks, Larry, very much. Have a nice Thanksgiving. Yeah, this is all the chickens coming home to roost. That's exactly what we're seeing here. That's how it plays out. And again, witnesses say he screamed Allah Akbar. Even if he didn't, I suspect there is a bit of a religious a note to this. But how about, have you ever seen this guy, Ted Williams, alleged national security expert on Fox? He had the host kind of dumbfounded tonight. He said, Trump sending in 500 more National Guard? What the hell is he doing? We don't want another Kent State. The National Guard is not going to be firing on people indiscriminately. There haven't been incidents with them. There just have not. Now, ICE, that's a different story. There have been a lot of incidents, you know, it's hand-to-hand combat. But the National Guard, they have just been there to kind of back up, be a presence. It helps deter crime. They're not firing their weapons. They're not arresting people by and large. They're not engaged in that. So why target them? Because he was going to target anybody in uniform. Who knows what his gripe is, his twisted religious gripe or Trump gripe, or what set him off. The bottom line is this wouldn't have happened if we didn't allow it to happen by having this guy here. How many more are out there that are going to attack us? Why can't we be unified in saying that? Because the left can't be unified in saying that. They don't care about that. Their policies would say this is collateral damage. We're better off having these people here. Based on what? Now, I believe he will be charged federally. That's my understanding. And depending upon the status of the National Guardsmen, you can follow what the punishment could be here. But I don't think this will be in D.C. Pray to God it's not. All right, more callers coming in. 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Yes, please do that now. Get with Dom Giordano. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210. Watching all the developments coming our way out of this awful shooting today. And the baggage of Joe Biden once again, and they would have run him again if he had been able to get through that debate. Will they stop comparing ICE, National Guard to Nazis? No, they will not. It's their playbook. They are going to continue to do this. And watch for more of this. They're putting up, people on the left, billboards are up already near Fort Bragg, telling the military, hey, did you get into this to be a backup to ICE? They're putting them up about the National Guard and trying to suggest to them they ought to disobey orders in Memphis and Washington and other places. Who's funding this? What's behind it? Are these things seditious? They're interfering with the chain of command? I think they are, or at least they're worth a look-see under oath. Let's go to Todd in Atlanta, Georgia. WGKA. Todd, welcome.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. And I just want to say, the National Guard are American citizens. They're not a foreign occupying force. They show up at natural disasters and rescue people, so I wish they would get more respect from the left. And I think that this is a military coup they're trying to instigate through their rhetoric. And I want to know about this Afghan. I want to know what mosque he was attending. I want to know how he got this gun. When these illegal alien gang members are killing people, the left never seems to be bothered about, where did they get their guns from?
That is a great point. And I believe, who's in charge here, Janine Pirro and the FBI. I think this will be federal. I think they're fighting right now to say, no, we're not going with Washington, D.C., to your point, Todd. And that's exactly the questions. Track this guy back. How is he able to overstay and nobody knows where he is at all? Your point about the mosque, what are they teaching in this mosque? He's stripped naked. That's the picture I see him. I don't know if this is a religious ritual on the scene. I think that's how they were able to corner him pretty quickly.
Well, it's disgusting the way that they just spit on the ICE, they spit on the military, they spit on the National Guard, and they're always the ones that are first at the scene when there's a disaster, trying to help out their fellow Americans.
Exactly. That's what they're about. Thank you. And all they're doing here is providing backup, freeing up the police to do actually running down crimes. In Washington, D.C., there is no doubt the crime rate is down. Now, sometimes President Trump goes off and say no murders. No, they still have murders, but everybody that I talk with, Scott Jennings is a friend, have him on quite a bit. They talk about the signs that they see. People today, Congress people, that it is safer. It's still not safe at night. It's not where I'd walk around because I don't know it well enough, but it is much safer. And sending in 500 more is to send a message. No, we're not going to pull out of this. No, we're not going to listen to those on the left that are trying to stir up trouble and saying, well, you can have another Kent State now. And the person that called in tonight and said, yeah, whatever happened with the sandwich guy? That's an assault. It's an assault, not with a deadly weapon, but it's an attempt just to make life miserable for people that are in the National Guard. Why in the world would you do that? Well, there's some on the left not only saying that Trump should be held responsible, but if you're following illegal orders, because the Nuremberg film is out there now, you could be held accountable. Can you imagine? Just the nerve of this, talking about rule of law. More has to be done with the seditious six. All right, final calls of this hour coming up. 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano. It is America at Night. A great night to be with you as on the cusp of Thanksgiving. Sadly, that makes it all the more tragic, this shooting in Washington today. Let's go nearby, Winchester, Virginia, WMAL. Let's talk with Allison. Hi, Allison. All right, let's go to Arthur, Mill Creek, Utah, KKAT. Arthur, welcome.
Well, thank you. I've got a question. The towel wrapping psychologist that wounded all those people at Fort Hood.
Yes.
I don't think any of those troops got a Purple Heart for being wounded by this jihadist. Will the I think that's disgrace, but
you know what? That is, and the next time I'm talking with any Trump officials, I'll put a bug in their ear, Arthur. They certainly deserved it, and we know that Dr. Hassan, that you're talking, Major Hassan, was giving off all kinds of vibes that he would do something potentially. The military were afraid they would get into trouble if they went after him.
Well, these two West Virginia guardsmen, they certainly deserve it.
Absolutely. The president ought to engage. I think they're waiting to just see the severity of the injuries and all that. But no, you're on the right track, that we ought to be honoring them and commending those that are standing watch tonight in Washington with this all around them, because the problem is something like this triggers other nuts to want to do something.
I'd like to speak to the reserves and the National Guard and the active Army. I've been part of all three of them, and we each one of us signed a blank check to payable to the United States of America for anything up to and including our lives.
Absolutely, and we thank you multiple times for your service, Arthur. Have a great Thanksgiving. That is a great point. That shooting at Fort Hood just still sticks in the craw, and this guy allegedly was yelling Allah Akbar after he committed this crime. So, again, still a lot to unravel. Thank God they're fighting desperately for their lives as we understand this, and our prayers are certainly with them and our actions to honor them. Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night on Westwood One.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
All right, it's Dom Giordano pinch hitting on America at Night with a very interesting guest and a very interesting thing that's pretty far away from today's news. Watching CNN, I saw them. I'm going to play you the cut from it. Erin Burnett, well, the guy in the morning, Harry Enton, does a great job of taking a look at numbers, sometimes political, but this one was about polygamy and how polygamy is gaining by leaps and bounds for approval in America. I think one stat was given 21% of people overall, 30% approximately of those in certain age ranges. Here's how it sounded on CNN. Erin Burnett, Harry Enton, shocked. Why is polygamy gaining acceptability in the U.S.?
Harry, why, we know the Pope was responding in part to concerns from African bishops who are concerned about the rise of polygamy that they are dealing with. That they had wanted this statement.
Yes.
Okay. But what are the basics? Like, why do this now?
I mean, look, I think there are a number of reasons why. You mentioned, of course, Africa, where, this Pope is trying to make a real sort of statement. But more than that, it's not just Africa where we see polygamy, at high levels. In America, for example, the number of Americans in a polyamorous relationship, I was crunching some numbers. We're talking upwards of 9 million Americans in a polyamorous relationship. Now, I should point out it's an estimate because it turns out there's no exact poll asking this question. But when you sort of put the different estimates together, we think it's about 9 million people, which is a lot of folks.
It is a lot of people. I mean, when you think about it, I understand as a percentage, maybe it's not that large, but it is a lot of people. So let's talk about this. I mean, polygamy, polyamory, for a while were taboo, right? There were certain places where it would happen in this country that people would think, but it became something that wasn't very common. Is it now more morally acceptable?
Yeah, this is where, building a trend line as to how many people are in a polyamorous relationship now versus 20 years ago is a little bit difficult. But we do know that the percentage who say it's morally acceptable is up like a rocket. I mean, you compare it to 20 years ago, we were talking about just 6%. Look at it now, 21% say polygamy is morally acceptable now. That is a rise of more than three times.
Can I just say something? That's 1 in 5 people.
Yes.
Think it's okay to have multiple spouses.
That's exactly right. 1 in 5, and that is led by younger folks where that percentage is over 30%.
1/3.
Yes.
This is really incredible. This is, it starts with a question in the morning and we say, well, what's going on here? I mean, that's wow, that really has you thinking. Okay, there's a lot there.
All right, they went on to say it's not Utah either. It's Alaska and Oregon are the two principal centers of this. Alaska and Oregon. Joining us is Jenn Styers, been on the show before. She is a dating and relationship expert, founder, CEO of Love Jen, and host of the popular podcast, The Loveability Show, with Jennifer Styers. Jenn Styers, welcome back to America at Night. Thanks for joining us.
Oh yeah, it's always fun to talk about crazy things like this, crazy trends we're seeing in relationships. I mean, I've been in the relationship business a long time and I'm constantly learning new things. So important to note that polygamy and polyamorous relationships are different because polygamy is marriage, polyamorous is a open relationship.
Right.
It's not marriage. Yeah. And so I just feel like that needs to be separated because I think some people might be putting that together in their head.
Yeah, but why? Well, what are the broad... Is this just incrementalism that we're seeing morally, people accepting more sorts of relationships? Is that it? Is there anything else that would provoke this?
There's a lot of factors. It started building up a lot during COVID. That's where the numbers really started trending. But it's more amongst younger people, and it's more liberal, so non-religious liberal. So you can pretty much say that if somebody is that believes in these open relationships or marriage, whatever, it's in non-religious communities, liberal communities, and that's what and young people, they're just not committing anymore. And we already knew that statistic. I mean, we've been following that for a while with the marriage rates dropping,
right?
Children drop, not having children. So that's been a trend. So it makes sense. And I will say this: it makes sense that this statistic would also increase. But what doesn't make sense is that it's just becoming socially acceptable, that people's morals are such that they would go, oh, I don't care who else you're sleeping with. It doesn't matter if you've got 5 partners. I'm okay with that. Like, I don't get that. I don't get that at all.
Yeah,
But
well,
that's
let me
where the
ask
young
you,
kids
too.
are.
Maybe I'm being sexist in this, but particularly you would think women would go, what are you talking about? You have 5 other women here that were revolving around. It could work both ways. But why? Why would that be the case? And I particularly, Jen, wanted to ask you, we talk in talk radio, not just relationships and the manner that you deal with it, but a whole generation of young people that are having trouble with dating or even asking someone out.
Right. Well, it's the conflict skills. They haven't learned those conflict skills. And so they've grown up hiding behind a phone. I mean, these kids had phones in their hands when they were 10, So they're in elementary school texting their girlfriend where we were writing notes, they're texting their girlfriends or boyfriends and breaking up with them. They've grown up in this generation where they don't have to confront anything. So they have no confrontation skills at all. So that goes with bad confrontation and even good. So, So they're used to being behind a keyboard, and it's just how it is. It is how it is.
What do you say on your podcast about this? There are people, I don't know if you watch Bill Maher. He's a friend, and last week he had on Scott Galloway, and they were talking about, particularly young men, this is a skill, and you're going to get rejected. I've been rejected, but, your attitude has to be, all right, you move on to something. What do you tell them to do? Because I'm not a fan. I never had to do this. And I get the upside of it. Online dating, you move some of the confrontation. But the amount of lying out there, the artificial nature of this, to me, is very difficult. What do you counsel?
Well, Scott Galloway is brilliant when talking about this younger generation and what's happening. And he handled that well in the fact that you have to force them. Like, you literally have to tell them, this is what you're doing, and I don't care whether you want to or not, this is what you're going to do. And forcing them to do it. Where the older generations are, as you said, exactly what you said, they've grown up in this place where they've learned they can't trust the opposite sex. Men don't trust women anymore. Women don't trust men. And so we're in this place now where dating is just out. I mean, it's like so many people are opting out of dating altogether. The app numbers have been going down. The apps are almost dead at this point. People don't want to get on them anymore unless they're hooking up. It's not for love. And a lot of people are just opting out, going, I can't, I don't like men anymore. I don't like women. I'm perfectly happy by myself. And I do want to bring in one other particular aspect that's really, really important here, Dom, and that is the idea that media is feeding into all of this. Every bit of the polyamorous relationships, being single. If you start looking at social media, you'll start seeing where people are talking. It's so great to be single. Women are happier single. Men are happier married, but women are happier single. And people are more at peace when they're single. So we're seeing a lot of messaging. And I guess because I'm in the business, I see a lot of that in my algorithm. But the amount of media sources that are putting out "you're better off single" messages are outrageous. So, this is how we brainwash people, Well,
I read a column this week that said, I think it was Barry Weiss, the Free Press, the pressure used to be, you got to get married. What are you waiting for? Now, could the pressure actually be, don't get married? Why are you even considering getting married? I mean, it should just be a natural thing. It shouldn't be a pressure either way.
100%. And so what we are looking at is this divorce generation. So A lot of
Yeah.
these kids that are growing up now, they've had parents that are divorced, and that's what the parents are saying. Don't get married, The woman will take half your stuff, or he'll cheat on you. And so they're hearing all of this stuff, and that's where they're shaping a lot of their beliefs about relationships and why they're not wanting to enter into marriage, which is why I thought it was so important. We had Charlie Kirk and the messaging that was out there about get married, have children, and was really bringing back those values. I really felt like they were back on, and I feel like they still are, and we've got to keep it up. But that was a conflicting message of trying to say, no, we should be getting married. We need to go back to that. It's good.
All right,
So-
stand by if you can, Jen. I want to talk about the holidays and relationships. One of the most difficult times of the year. We have Jenn Styers with us. And again, this is an epidemic, and the media, I agree with her, seems to be egging some of it on. No, there's tremendous upside. I mean, the upside of women having their own career, their own money in this, and not being dependent to have to get married is one thing, versus the joy of this, the natural consequence of this. Why is it fraught with so many minefields? We'll do that next. Dom Giordano, for the record, happily married over 40 years, sitting in on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, we have one of those guests with me, Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia, sitting in tonight. And we're talking with Jenn Styers. She is the host of the popular podcast, The Loveability Show, with Jennifer Styers. Jennifer, let's talk about the holidays this time of year. Getting through that when people are alone, maybe they've broken up, maybe they've given up a little bit. They see people that are happy together. Do you get a lot of inquiries about how to deal with that?
I used to.
Okay.
Not so much anymore. Interestingly, the conversation we're having, it is not because it's not an issue as much as it was, where there used to be a lot of pressure on when are you getting married, when are you going to have babies. It's the pressure is just not as much there. There's a lot more acceptance of people being single. I think even single people aren't feeling that, oh my gosh, I'm alone and all my friends have a relationship or are married. There's not a lot of pressure overall. There's just not a lot of pressure on that. So I don't think that where once it was always going home for the holidays, what are the parents going to say? What kind of pressure is Aunt, Karen going to, put on me for not being married yet or being in a relationship or having babies? It's just not, those questions aren't happening as much anymore. The world has changed.
Well, that's an upside. That part is an upside, but the downside is just shielding yourself off from any upside here.
100%. I was thinking when you went to break, you said you've been married for 40 years.
Yes.
I've been in radio for 16, and almost every long-term radio host I've talked to has been married a long time. I mean, whatever you guys are doing, it's working.
We are finding somebody that can put up with our quirkiness and craziness, and you ought to know that. You probably have. Quirkiness to Jen is good in a podcast or a host. Not craziness, but quirkiness. That's that little sizzle that's in there, and you are a live wire with that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be good at this. So let me ask you, say the last few shows and upcoming, what are you talking about on your podcast, The Loveability Show with Jennifer Styers?
We are talking about, giving people the confidence to get back out there, not giving up on love. I mean, I think that if I have any message for people, it's like, it's okay to be alone, and it's okay to get to know yourself and take all the time you need to find your peace, but don't give up. You still need to get out there. You still need to keep your eyes open, and you still need to be open to the possibility, because people are giving up. And so I feel like that's a big conversation that we're having right now. I personally think we're going to have a reset down the road here. I think once enough people get out of it and they're like, okay, I'm done, they're going to be like, okay, I want it again. I've always wanted it. How do I get back in safely, you know?
Sure. One thing I would note, too, one of the best avenues, that's how I found my wife, we were both teachers at the time, is women are in the workplace even more than ever. So there's more opportunity to see, how you would blend with a person, a fit. Do you get along? Do you have mutual interest? You would think that would help, right?
Yeah, I mean, meeting people at work is great. What I am coaching a lot of women on now, as we're talking about it, is that having that balance of femininity and masculinity, because they go to work and they're successful and they're very masculine at work, and then they're trying to find a partner and they want a partner that leads, but they're so strong. So I think that balance of the masculine and feminine is a tough spot right now.
Do you coach?
That's a whole other conversation, though.
Oh, well, we'll have you back. I'm already making notes here for my show in Philadelphia. We need to hear more of Jenn. Jenn,
I love it.
Yeah, coaching men. You mentioned coaching women. Do you coach any men? And if so, what's their issue? How do you coach them? Do you say, now, get the hell out there and ask her out?
No. So here's the cool thing about men. So as women have retreated from dating, men have opened up to relationships. Not that they're not skeptical about dating.
Okay.
They're just more emotionally intelligent about it. COVID changed a lot for men, where they're like, I want a relationship. I want a serious relationship. I'm open to more than just looks. And I want compatibility. I want a best friend. I feel like men are way more on point than women are these days.
Wow. All right. Book it next week. We got to get you on in Philadelphia, Jenn. Thank you so much. And again, the Loveability Show with Jenn Styers. Is there a place people would go on Twitter or somewhere else to find you?
All of the above, Jennifer Styers. And my website is lovejen, LOVEJENN.com.
Thank you so much. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining tonight. All right, there is Jennifer Styers. I thought a little change. Yeah, the hook was the polygamy thing, but this is a crisis here, particularly from the male side. I guess from the female, but more from the male. As far as I have producers between what we talked about this week on America at Night, not having cash in their pocket ever. They're allergic to it. Remember that. It's also this arena, which is always tough. I mean, no one likes to be rejected. Come on. If you hit 1 out of 20, I think you got a good batting. You don't need to be a 300 hitter in order to be doing well and meeting women. Okay, 833-482-5337. I have another update from what President Trump just said. We'll get to that. You're listening to America at Night on Westwood One.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Really enjoyed Jenn Styers, Dom Giordano pinch hitting. She's got a good attitude about this, but boy, there's a lot of sadness in that to me. That's where we are in dating and relationships. But you get in right now at 833-482-5337. So President Trump, after the initial announcement, announced that he's calling for the vetting of all Afghanis that came in under the Biden, debacle of getting out of Afghanistan with no vetting and no continued vetting, and no one knows who they are and what they're doing here. Now, look, he promised that. He wants to do that. But, boy, this is another gargantuan task. But you have this guy who overstayed how long he was allowed to do this. No check-in, nothing. Nobody knows where he is. He shows up, allegedly attacks and shoots 2 of our National Guard. I see him naked. I think he's stripped down after it. He yells Allah Akbar, and he's in Washington. How many of these people are out there and they get triggered when they see someone like this pull this off? They want to do it. And already the pushback on the president is on 2 things: putting in 500 more National Guard, and also bringing up, we're going to vet these people finally. You may remember one of the first term of President Trump most intense moments was when he talked about, I believe it was 5 countries at that time who have no records, nothing. Who do we know? How are they coming in? I think it was on a Sunday. And Democrats went nuts. They want to err on the side of not protecting Americans. They want to protect some right of people like these people from Afghanistan. They're already saying, well, don't you want to bring these people in that aided and abetted us in Afghanistan? Yeah, if we know they did, and B, if we don't see any suspicious signs here. Where did this guy get the weapon? What mosque was he at? What are they teaching? What's the background here? How was he making a living? What signs was he exhibiting? You don't just show up 2 blocks from the White House and try to kill 2 National Guardsmen in an ambush right before Thanksgiving. Doesn't happen that way. All right, let me go to William, Chicago, Illinois, WLS. Hey, William.
Dom. Evening, actually.
Okay.
I live in the nighttime world, sorry. But no, being retired military myself, I get it, all right? And I'm very sorry for those 2 service people that got, wounded. Okay, let's start with that. Second, the most important part of this is how and where did this guy get the gun from?
Right.
It's got to have a registry on it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think the feds are more involved, thank God, than the local police. I think it's all going to go through that. And, William, I think to your point, they're going to get answers to the very questions that you and I want that often are evaded by the local police in a blue city.
I got you, brother. Hey, you know what? Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, okay?
You too, William. Thank you, and thank you for your service very much. Scott, I think we've spoken before because Enterprise, Alabama, I recognize. Enterprise, Alabama, WDBT. Hey, Scott, welcome in.
Hey, how are you doing tonight?
Good, Scott.
Well, I had a question. First, I wanted to comment on the lady that was talking earlier about marriage.
Yes.
I'll be married 32 years, December 11th, and have 2 kids, grown up great.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like it.
Absolutely. Well, I gotta pull rank on you a bit though. When you said 32 years, you're a rookie.
Yeah, I heard you had over 40.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
But now I waited. I was 27 before I got married.
Okay. There you go.
One of those that waited a while before I ever got married.
Well, that's a good age. That's almost the perfect age, Scott.
Yeah, my daughter got married last year at the same time, 27.
Right.
My son's getting married in April, and he'll be 25, so both of them waited. But the main thing I wanted to ask you is, I know about our National Guard being activated. Are they allowed to carry weapons?
Yes, and it's a little bit unclear to me, Scott, to that point, though, and I'm going to try to lock it in before the end of the show tonight, whether these 2 were. It seems to be a mixed thing. Some of them are, and some of them are not in certain circumstances. So I think even if they had the weapons, though, this guy came out of nowhere, apparently turning a corner, and just started opening fire.
Yeah, and they should be allowed to carry all the weapons of the military.
Exactly.
Not just sidearms, but also rifles. And,
yeah, exactly.
They're there on duty for the United States, and they should be able to carry everything they need.
Absolutely. Have a great Thanksgiving. Congratulations on the marriage and family, Scott. Thank you very much. 32 years. Okay, good stuff. All righty. Here's how you get on board. 833-482-5337. That's all that you have to do. I'm a little unclear. I don't want to say anything. This is such a sensitive matter. I don't know that it's been officially designated that they were armed with rifles other than sidearms or anything in this situation. And they were in a kind of tourist area within 2 blocks of the White House, give or take. But the breaking news is that President Trump now, after the initial 500 people coming to D.C., 500 more National Guard, saying that we're going to vet every one of these Afghanis that's here, and tracking him down, engaging in this stuff is going to be a gargantuan task. Tom Homan yesterday said 10,000 more ICE agents are going to be in the country. They're going to be deputized, ready to go by mid-January. I think they've been outstanding. I know it seems like between self-deporting and what they've been able to accomplish, it's remarkable. The problem is, as far as we know, we're overrun, we're inundated with what Biden did. And the people that we don't know about, like this guy in various ways, there are other problems. And the other side doesn't care about that. I'm not even saying the ones who want to use it for political purposes, but they more align with the so-called rights of people like this guy than the rights to be protected, particularly the National Guard. This guy well overstayed how long he was supposed to be here. He was never vetted. That's becoming obvious. Now the vetting has to be, how did he get the weapon? What is his mosque like? Let's go in great detail. Usually these are not lone wolf types. There's something like that going on. Is he involved with any group that wants to terrorize the National Guard? The sanctuary city status of Washington. Yet, even on Fox News, this guy Ted Williams really got to me tonight, alleged national security expert. All Ted Williams wanted to know on Fox was, what the hell is the president doing by bringing in 500 more National Guard? Hasn't he heard of Kent State? The National Guard are not engaging and going wild here because of this. But you can imagine what it's like just helping out, you know, being a physical presence, even picking up trash and beautifying and doing other stuff. And suddenly a maniac right before Thanksgiving turns a corner and opens fire full bore on you with, I think, pretty heavy weapons. They were wearing bulletproof vests, so I'm not going to speculate on anything there about their weapons. I do know that some of them, I've seen them, are carrying. Others, I'm not sure in certain roles, it doesn't seem to be that way. So it's kind of a mixed thing. Maybe they'll give the order now that they should be more heavily weaponized no matter what the situation is. And remember people saying, well, why are you not out there in the neighborhoods? There's nothing happening here. Well, it is happening here. Sanctuary City, Biden administration. How many fingerprints do we need to see the ideology of the Democratic Party, how it plays out? Sometimes it's silly. They're woke and they're silly. Other times they get people hurt very severely. All right, phone lines, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night. 833-482-5337 gets you to me. A couple of updates. One, J.D. Vance tweeted out in the middle of this, I remember back in 2021 criticizing the Biden policy of opening the floodgates to unvetted Afghani refugees. Friends sent me messages calling me a racist. It was a clarifying moment. What does this tell us? President Trump, and I would be a little bit more buttoned up on this, even though I take the point, I've done Minnesota radio. President Trump also talking about Somali refugees and some of the issues there, Ilhan Omar. And there have been issues. They've all settled in one spot there. I think Maine is another spot. And there have been issues, and maybe some more vetting is needed. So you can see coming out of this what's shaping up. There's going to be a battle here, with bringing in more National Guard. In addition to that, there's going to be a battle over this vetting. Proof again, people here illegally overstaying visas, whatever it might be, more needs to be done. It is a gargantuan task. It is almost too much to imagine, but that's what he was elected to do. All right, let's go to Tony in Montreal, WVMT. Hi, Tony. Go right ahead.
How are you? I called into your screener, and I said, I want to talk about security. And I've been in the library all day doing on legal research on what I'm working on right now. And what I hear is another shooting, and it's an Afghani, and it's a person that's unvetted. It's another immigrant. Mm-hmm. Listen, 20 million immigrants came into your country unvetted. And fentanyl comes into the United States and Canada through the same channels. The United States is under a security threat. Numerous think tanks have said that the Chinese have a road and they call it a road and rail type of
belt and road. I think they call it belt and road. Yeah. And Synergia Foundation out of India warned the United States about this maybe 5-6 years ago.
Right. And there's islands in the Caribbean where they're building airports bigger than LaGuardia. Why? You have Panama, you have China, you have the Russians that are attacking, and now you have people shooting people. And the surreptitious attack on the United States is coming through universities, the philosophies, and the Islamofascists. What I call the Islamofascist movement, it's always violence. People seem to forget we're not attacking moderate people that believe in religious belief in peace.
Exactly.
And whether you're Muslim or Christian, but what we're talking about is Islamic, militant, Islamist, fundamentalists that want to do destruction on the United States, Europe, and Canada. They brought down the two Twin Towers. We have to be 10 times more vigilant than we are right now. Vetting anybody that's illegally in the country should be removed. Look, when I crossed the border into the United States, I've lived in the United States. I had to be under visa. And I lived in Maine, and you are right about the Somalis in Maine. They congregate in one area, and they take over politically. This is the same movement of the Islamic movement in the United States. The Muslim
Dearborn. Yeah, Dearborn, Michigan's another. Tony, thank you. I have some others I have to go to, but thank you, Tony. As always, thanks for your call. Yeah, Ilhan Omar, President talking about somebody. Just be buttoned up, Mr. President. In other words, I get it now, the righteous anger, the anger over something that obviously didn't have to happen. Let's methodically state, just as I tried to, about Somalis and Omar and pockets of this, and Dearborn, Michigan is a hotbed of this. And what we saw with this guy was emboldened. He could walk around Washington, sanctuary, nothing's going to happen with the police or anything else there. And as we understand it, just pops up and starts firing. They had bulletproof vests. Not sure, don't want to speculate on how they were hit and all that. The bottom line is, though, the president's right on this for sending in more National Guard. Now, if they come in tomorrow, there's got to be some way that America reaches out and there's turkey dinners and all that stuff for them. I'm not sure if they come in tomorrow, separated from their families again on Thanksgiving. And the law enforcement that is working even as we speak, and I heard on Fox would work through the day tomorrow, they're not going to be with their families, maybe 100 of them or more, because this is such a case we have to get to the bottom of quickly. We have to trace this guy's background, the weapon, the mosque, if he did attend a mosque, the family ties, are they there? Are they radicalized? And what is it that would radicalize this guy? Is it something Democrats have been saying? Is it religious? all open questions, to put it mildly. All right, 833-482-5337 gets you to me. Dom Giordano, it's America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, it's America at Night. Dom Giordano pinch hitting. It has been a sorrowful night, but a busy night and some great guests. Let's take a couple callers. Robert in Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Go right ahead, Robert.
Okay, I can talk about either of those two topics. I happen to know both of them very well. Which one would you like me to speak about?
Oh, go right ahead. Your choice, Robert, whatever you wish.
Okay, I'll talk about the situation in the Caucasus. You have different ethnic groups there, and the Caucasus was a very, very difficult place for people to survive over a very long period of time, because people were coming up from India into Europe, and there was all kinds of, they were bringing valuables with them, things that they wanted to transport, and they would try to take things from them, but the people who were coming through that area would try to keep their stuff. And what happened was around 1900, their population was down to about 100,000, and these Georgians decided to join the Russian Empire because they were afraid that they might get completely wiped out. So the people who survived were the people who were capable of surviving in very difficult situations.
I got you. Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. I'm going to squeeze some others in. Richard in Maryville, Washington, KTTH. Hey, Richard, go right ahead.
Yeah, I fully agree with the guardsmen being fully armed. This thing about not having handguns is some stupid crap from the liberals. I don't hold with that. But you see, I think they're lacking something. I think they should also be armed with flamethrowers. Like if you got a crowd of Antifa lunatics.
All right, thank you, Richard. Look, we're not crazy here. We're not advocating wild stuff. We're not going to use flamethrowers. This isn't about the military, situation in an urban area or anything else. We want them to have the fullest level, I do, to protect themselves. And in this situation, it's a little bit unclear to me, so we're not going to go wild with it with flamethrowers or anything else. All right, just wanted to take a moment to remind everyone, had the honor of interviewing the new host of America at Night, McGraw-Milhaven, twice. He's been on with me during my stint here, longest stint that I've done all the way back to the Bohannon days. Have loved it. It's going to be a spectacular show. Don't forget, he starts America at Night Monday, December 1st. So that'll be a change. I hope to see you down the road, maybe filling in the holidays and the like. And I love the opportunity. One of the great points is working with the two guys here behind the scenes, Rich Good, the producer I interact with most, and during the day, the executive producer, who Alex Hinton does a great job, been with the show for quite a while over the years. So all that stuff is good. I want everyone to have a great Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for this opportunity, and hopefully we will talk again. You can follow me on Twitter, though, at DomShow1210, and listen to me, the Odyssey app, and noon until 3, the former Rush spot, on a big station, Talk Radio 1210, out of Philadelphia. Have a great Thanksgiving, and again, we'll see tomorrow what happens in Washington. I think that we'll see some better results. Hopefully, our prayers with these guardsmen. This is America at Night, happening right now all across the country on Westwood 1.